Dealing with the commissioner, so anyways, sorry about that.
Maybe some aspirations are there. That's okay.
Yeah, and if along the way, based on the responses they provide on those questions that we have received, if there's any clarifying questions you'd like to do, please raise your hand, and we can engage in that conversation. So, again, thank you for coming. Please write your questions, and we'll see you in a couple minutes.
And we have cookies.
Cookies and water. time this afternoon in this great opportunity to get to know the directors of Thurston County. The objective of this gathering is really for you to put a face, or for us to put a face to the business of Thurston County. What you have in front of you, those are the leaders. They provide services to just about all the citizens in the county. And as we spend the last 30 minutes, hopefully have the opportunity to get to know them on an individual basis. For the next few minutes, I have some questions in here that you have submitted, and as well as we have some other questions that we're going to be asking. I will be facilitating the conversation. And along the way, as you hear the responses, please make sure if there's any clarifying questions, raise your hand, and I will give you the forum to ask follow-up questions. So with that in mind, how about if we just go around the room, and each of the directors can introduce themselves and give you 2 minutes as to what they do and what type of the business, side of the business in the county they do.
Good evening, and thanks for coming. My name is Robin Campbell. I'm the Assistant County Manager and the Budget Director for Thurston County. I work directly with the commissioners and Romero, and also me and my team assist the board in making determinations about the county budget. We assist all of our offices and departments with the budget. Then once the board adopts a budget, we monitor that budget and ensure that your tax dollars are spent in appropriate ways.
Hi everyone, I'm Shelley Slaughter. I'm Director of Thurston County Public Health and Social Services. And our mission is working together to achieve the highest health and well-being for everyone in Thurston County. And we do that through many different programs and divisions, including environmental health, which is things like water quality, including your drinking water and the lakes that you recreate in and our shoreline. We make sure that we provide septic education and work together with my other partners here at the table on permitting and things like that. We also have child and family wellness programs, so maternal child health programs, including our nurse-family partnership, as well as social service programs such as our homeless and affordable housing. So we're responsible for funding many of our different organizations in our community and doing policies and programs that support our most vulnerable. We also have developmental disabilities programs, veterans, many others, much more that I'm happy to answer questions, but I don't want to go on too long and give the chance for my other fellow directors to share more about what they do.
Good evening. My name is Katie Gerard, and I'm the Director of Human Resources here at Thurston County. I've been here for just over 2 years, and in that capacity, I get the pleasure of leading 19 fabulous staff that provide all the human resources, risk management, and Board of Equalization support for our county. We have things like safety and risk management, employee relations, labor relations. We have 9 different collective bargaining agreements that we negotiate with those unions on a staggered cycle. The first year I was here, we did all 9 in the first year, so that was a big challenge. But we also do recruitment, compensation, benefits, all the training, required training for our county staff, and just get the pleasure of working with all the elected offices as well as all of the department leaders to make sure that we attract and retain and recognize the great staff that work here at Thurston County. We have just over 1,000 employees. We grow a little bit in the summertime based on some seasonal work, but we're very fortunate to have a very strong quality workforce here supporting all the services that we provide to our community.
Good evening. My name's Marianne Clear. I'm the Director for Pretrial Services. Pretrial Services focuses on public safety. So what we do is we go into the jail and we interview individuals when they've been arrested. We prepare the reports for the court, the prosecutor, the public defense for their preliminary hearing, and that allows for individuals to review the information for their conditions of release. If they are ordered to our supervision, we monitor them while they're in the community pending resolution of their case. Our focus is to ensure that the high-risk offenders are in custody and then monitoring those individuals that are on our supervision and make sure we communicate that information to all of the parties for those. So.
My name is Martin Casey, and for the last 5 years I have served as the Central Services Director for Thurston County. Central Services provides a mix of internal support services. We manage almost 650,000 square feet of county facilities. We provide the information technology services to include desktop support, application support, and network infrastructure, as well as GIS mapping services. We manage a fleet of almost 600 pieces of equipment and vehicles, and we deliver the mail and provide records archiving services for the county. We have about 80 employees who are dedicated to being behind the scenes, keeping the lights on, keeping the computers running, and keeping everything running so that all of these other offices and departments represented at the county can focus on delivering high-quality services to the public. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Patrick O'Connor. I'm the Director of the Public Defender's Office here in Thurston County. I've been a lifelong public defender defending this community, and it's an awesome responsibility that our department has to defend people in this community's constitutional rights to an attorney if they can't afford one. And that's exactly what we do. We have a dedicated team of lawyers and staff that represent individuals accused of crime and crimes in adult court, in youth juvenile court, as well as involuntary treatment hearings. Those are hearings in which individuals in our community suffering from mental illness face detention in a state facility, and a variety of other things.
Good evening. My name is Kurt Harden. I'm the Director of Emergency Services. That includes emergency management and Medic One. Under emergency management, it's essentially disaster preparedness, disaster response, and disaster recovery. Under Medic One, we help equip and train and maintain the medics and the EMTs that come out when you have a medical emergency and people have to dial 911. We help work with the medics and EMTs to make sure they get out there and they know what they're doing.
Jennifer Walker, Public Works Director, and Public Works Department has a little over 180 employees. I've been in this position for 6 months, so just take that into consideration when you ask me your questions. Public Works, we manage and maintain the transportation system, so county roads and unincorporated Thurston County. We have water and sewer utilities, so we have about 800 customers. We also are responsible for the solid waste transfer facility and drop box facilities. And parks and trails are also in Public Works, as well as noxious weeds, lake management districts. We have 2 of those. And our community litter cleanup program.
I'm Joshua Cummings. I am the Director of CPED, which is the Community Planning and Economic Development. Our department has about 90 team members. I've been an employee here at Thurston County for about 5 years, but on the job as the director for about 6 months. So yeah, me too also, please take it easy. But our department has essentially 5 divisions. The first that most people are most familiar with is the development services, so the permitting of buildings. So if you need your house needs to be permitted, or whatever business you have, the building that you're constructing needs to come through our office to get permits. Also, we have the community planning, which is the group that is engaged in projects such as Shoreline Master Program, the SMP, or the Comprehensive Plan, or following GMA, the Growth Management Act from the state. Another big one that they do is the, you guys might have heard of the Habitat Conservation Plan and the Mazava Pocket Gopher. That's within this organization. A couple of nods, yeah. All right. And then also water resources, the stormwater utility. We worked out there in the drains to suck the stuff out of the drains so the water continues to flow and we don't have floods, as well as the permits for the pollution in connection with ecology, so we can continue to have construction in Thurston County. And also within CPED is the Thurston County Fair and Fairgrounds, which is available for rental outside of the fair event season, just as a quick heads up. As also at the fairgrounds is the WSU Extension. In partnership with WSU, we have ag programs that serve our citizens here locally. The SNAP Ed program helps underprivileged folks have access to food, 4-H programs, access to having fun for kids with animals and other vocations, and just all things that are tied to the community and how we engage with citizens here locally.
I remembered a couple other really important programs that I forgot to mention. So sorry. We also are responsible for food safety in our community, so all restaurant inspections, as well as investigating infectious disease and keeping everybody safe and healthy from preventable diseases, everything ranging from foodborne illnesses, vaccine preventable illnesses, STDs, and things of that nature. And we also provide education so that people can be healthy, and we are currently ranked the 6th healthiest county in our community. So we track a lot of data that I'm happy to share with you if you're interested in anything specific. And we prepare our community in case of a public health emergency.
What a perfect segue for you, Shelley. I have a question for you. Every week, citizens learn about restaurants closures in local newspapers. Can you explain the inspection process and the criteria public health uses to determine if a restaurant fails inspection?
Sure, I'll try my best. So we are responsible for inspecting about 2,000 different eating establishments in Thurston County. And we do that at several different phases. So we do that whenever a restaurant is opening and someone's planning to open a restaurant. We have specific criteria that come from the Washington State Department of Health that's in statute, the criteria that we follow. And we provide support and partner with those businesses so that they can teach their staff best food practices, and we can help them to design their facility in such a way that meets all the requirements. And also, we provide regular inspections to all the restaurants. So we do that throughout the community, throughout the year. Every restaurant is inspected at least twice a year, and sometimes more often. And there, like I said, there's specific criteria that we evaluate, and then we provide training and education and support for them to correct anything that might lead to some kind of foodborne illness or other condition in order to protect the health and safety of the community.
Very good. Thank you. Any additional questions for Shelley on that topic? Let me go back to Josh. And Josh, you mentioned the Habitat Conservation Plan. So most of us in this room know what that is all about. And but can you give us an update as to where we are in the process? What are the steps that are taken to achieve the HCP? And in your opinion, why is it so important to have an HCP, a Habitat Conservation Plan for the county?
You're going to do the easy ones, huh? All right. Well, so one of the charges of the government is to ensure that we balance our environmental protection and our economic development, that we have a broad swath of making sure that all of those things are taken care of. We are the implementer of the rules and regulations and laws of all of the governments above us. So on the county level, we have the opportunity as the government closest to the people to enact laws from the state and from the federal government. One of those laws is the ESA, the Endangered Species Act. And within that process of the ESA, they have designated the Mazama pocket gopher, among other species, as listed, endangered. And for us to continue to build here in Thurston County, we have to go through a process of creating what's called a Habitat Conservation Plan, an HCP. So why is it important? If we don't do this, the federal government will make it difficult for us to continue building, adding on to our homes, building businesses, all of those things that are part of how we have a vital economy and places to live, work, and play. In terms of where we are in the process, so we've had multiple opportunities to engage with U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, which is the federal regulating agency that's a part of that is working with us on the Habitat Conservation Plan. We, as the county, get to draft what we think is an appropriate HCP and then submit it to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. And so we are currently in that process of completing what we believe is the draft that will balance that economic development with environmental protection and fulfills what our commissioners have thought and has guided our staff to address the questions on the HCP. We're looking to have that done in draft form and presented to the commissioners hopefully by July at the latest, for the commissioners to review and then for us to present that to them for their approval, and then that goes to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service for their review. Once it's at U.S. FWS, the timing on that is on the federal government. So our part of the program and this first iteration of our draft for the HCP should be done by June or July. Was there was a third part on that, or did I get it?
And why it's so important for the county and perhaps the citizens to have an HCP?
And that was part of the process in making sure that we continue to have the ability to do with our land what we want to do with our land and what is allowed under federal law. So to not shut down economic development, to not shut down building, to be able to build on the property that we have and use the land in the way that we would like. That's why it's so important. Thank you.
Thank you. In any organization, the biggest asset is our workforce. This question is for Katie. In Thurston County, as any other organization, we have an aging workforce, and many of our staff, including ourselves, are reaching the retirement age in the next 10 years or so. What are some of the tools that we're currently using to reach out to the millennials, and high-skilled workers to see the county as a good opportunity for them to have a professional career?
You're absolutely right. Our biggest expense and our greatest asset is definitely the people that work for county government. You're absolutely correct. I would expect that we'll start to lose a significant amount of our workforce in the next actually 3 to 5 years, just based on the retirement data that I get a chance to take a look at. We have definitely an aging workforce that is going to be able to enjoy their retirement, which is a great benefit that we provide to the workers here. So some of the things that we're looking at is alternative avenues to recruit people. We've participated in programs that are reaching into the high school level, even to just to make sure people understand that public service is a great career opportunity, and getting to people early as we look to educate people about the different types of jobs we offer, because it's quite varied, right? You can be in the judicial system or the law enforcement or environmental services, public works. We have such a variety here in local government that it's important that people understand that there's a lot of career paths, both for those that are continuing in their education and going for a 4-year degree, as well as those that aren't. There's opportunities for someone that's looking at trade school or even just a high school diploma. We certainly have opportunities at all different educational levels, and so it's a matter of making sure people understand that. Our recruitment, while we have a centralized tool that we use, governmentjobs.com is the place where you can go to find out all of the opportunities that are available within Thurston County. We do provide that central tool for all offices and departments, and different offices and departments are engaging in different practices to connect with potential candidates. And so sometimes we'll look at using a national job board. We'll also look at our professional organizations. For instance, if there's an organization in human resources, it's the Society for Human Resource Management, looking at people who are participating in those programs and letting them know about the jobs available in human resources. So we use a variety of methods. We haven't done a lot on the job fair scene. That is definitely one avenue, which just in my career, I've been in government at the state level for a long time, and you just don't get the same kind of return. The other thing that I would like to do, we aren't currently doing yet, but is exploring looking at in-training opportunities where we bring people in real early after their education and train them here and get them exposed to exactly the type of skills that we need to have a real productive workforce. It's a tool that I think could really serve us well because we typically look for people that are in mid-career, so having some sort of an in-training opportunity would give people a chance to come in early. So that's one of the things that's on the horizon for us to be looking at ways to bring people in, get them experience, get them training to be ready to replace the workers that are going to be able to enjoy their retirement, because that's a good thing too. And government, offers a great pension, and great benefits. So there's definitely some pluses for that work-life balance. I think you'll see lots of information in the news about how the millennials are really changing in terms of what they're looking for in their workforce. An opportunity to do meaningful work. I think we have that here at the county. Opportunity to have the work-life balance. balance. I think we have that here as well. An opportunity to be a lifelong learner. We need to make sure we have people that are going to keep their skills fresh and look for ways to continue to build. And I think we do a great job of getting people into fields that offer those opportunities.
Perfect. Let's move on to Patrick O'Connor. You know, the mission of your office is to provide defense to indigent defenders. Perhaps some of the public doesn't understand how an indigent defender becomes part of your defense. And within that process, can you explain how you balance providing the defense to those indigent defenders as well as abiding by the law and regulations of the courts?
Well, both the United States and the Washington State Constitutions mandate that anybody accused of a crime is entitled to an attorney. So we are fortunate in the state of Washington to have very specific standards for indigent defense. Our state Supreme Court has adopted a standard of practice in this state for departments like myself to provide not just representation, but full representation. And full representation affords our clients the opportunities to not just have a lawyer meet them in court and to defend them, but to provide investigation, to challenge the state's case when the government accuses somebody of a crime, that they get a full defense. I'd like to think that it's one that our state embraces as one as if our clients could afford an attorney, and that's certainly how our department approaches it, that we provide people in this community not just adequate defense, but quality defense, quality representation, and that's how we treat our clients. We are very client-centered. We meet our clients where they are. Our clients suffer a lot of issues in their life nationally. Poverty, chemical dependency, and mental illness are the three largest contributors to the criminal justice system, and we're no different. And so we take great pride in, for those individuals that may fit into one of those categories, to not just represent their legal case, but to try to connect them with services to make some changes in their life, and ultimately to provide us with a safer community. In addition, we also have cases which are going to go to trial and to challenge the state's case. Our clients are presumed to be innocent, and we take that very seriously. And so it's, as I said earlier, it's an awesome responsibility to live up to what the Constitution guarantees citizens in this community, and that's the right to counsel.
Thank you. Let's just stay on the same subject in terms of we have a larger challenge in terms of the jail population, and that is something we continue to investigate ways as to how we can reduce jail population. So this question is for Mary Ann Clear, and can you walk us through as to how your program really has an impact or not to jail population?
One of the things that pretrial services does is we interview everyone that is charged with crimes in Superior Court, and that's about 90% of the jail population when they come in the door. And those reports that we send to the court and council include recommendations from pretrial services with respect to conditions of release and whether or not we would be able to monitor them in the community. And that is some assurance to Patrick's office and the prosecuting attorney's office, as well as the court, that when they're released, we will be able to have those individuals come into our office and meet with us. If ordered, then we can request those individuals provide urine analysis samples and monitor those tests, provide results to the court if they are violating their conditions of release, and ensure that those individuals know that they are supposed to return to court when their court dates are, give them reminders, and ensure that they are following what they are supposed to do, reporting when they're not. That's an assurance that when they're not in custody, that they're in the community with eyes on them coming into our office. I think it's expensive to have people in jail. It's more than $100 a day per person that's in custody. and it's not that much to have them come into our office. So we have noticed that when the jail population has been impacted recently, just over the last month, our population has gone up with the jail population going down. I don't know if that's a trend that will continue or not, but I'm hopeful it might continue and prove that it's being effective.
Thank you. And yeah, you are correct. Housing an inmate on a daily basis costs us just about $120 a day. So that really comes down to the impacts on the budget for the county. So this question is for Robin Campbell. And we're currently in the process, or we are living a biennial budget, meaning we have a budget for 2017 and 2018. And also in the preparation of the biennial budget, that was the first the Thurston County went through, moving away from the annual budget process to a biennial budget process. We introduced a priority-based budget. So the question for you, Robin, if you can tell us what has worked, what is not working, perhaps some of the opportunities that lies ahead of us.
Sure. So some of the things that have worked about the biennial budget is that it provides more predictability for offices and departments. We tend to take a longer view. It allows for better planning and projections into the future. So that part's working really well. Part of the priority-based budget process that worked very well is offices and departments that had similar focus, like you hear, like our Public Works and our CPED offices or departments can work together. It's breaking down silos. So we approach the budget in a more holistic and systematic way and find efficiencies and ways to save money. That part worked really, really well. The part that doesn't work so well is that we just don't have enough money. And I'm sure there could never be enough, but there aren't things for some of the basic needs of the county. And the expenditure growth is at about 3.9, almost 4% per year. Our revenue grows a little less than 3% per year. And as you can imagine, that impacts the fund balance. We are constantly looking for ways to make revenue, but the county is an agent of the state. And what that means is that there are, every service that the county provides is mandated by a state law, but the state doesn't always pay for those mandates. And they have very significant restrictions on how the county can make revenue. So as much as we would like to be innovative, and we're as innovative as we can be, there are limits to what we can do. So the commissioners are put in a position of having to make some pretty significant choices about what we can and can't fund. That part is difficult. That's a challenge that we're up to the task. Every office and department in this county is creative about how to get services out to the people in a growing population when we don't have a growing revenue stream. So it's a challenge.
In the 2017-2018 biennial budget, the county commissioners allocated $4 million from the real estate excise tax to address one of the biggest problems that we have, not just in the county but across the state. And they have been pioneering in allocating those $4 million on removing fish barriers in the county. So this is a question to Public Works Director Jennifer Walker to walk us through the program that you have in place to at least beginning the removal of those barriers related to fish passage.
Last year, the group went through, and we have about 3,000 culverts But we had, in narrowing that down, we looked at where are those, working with stakeholders, where are those culverts that will make the most impact, that are blocked, that'll have the most impact, though, if we improve them. And so we narrowed that down to about 200. We have established criteria to look at not only just the improvements for the fish passage, but also just the volume that we can get through. So, sorry, I'm going through the process here in my head. And so one of the advantages is the commissioners allocating money, and one of the only counties, I think, in the state that are doing these fish passage culverts that are strictly for improving the habitat for fish passage, and not also in addition to transportation culverts, road improvements or bridges. And so that's been pretty impactful. And also looking and working with our stakeholders to identify where we have the most impact in getting those done. And if we can get this continuing going on, we'll be able to tackle even some of the larger ones, because there's a planning phase that we have to go through, and there's permitting phase, and that takes some time to work through. It spans more than a year or two. So we've been pretty successful in that, and actually we'll be putting 5 together with almost 7 miles of improved habitat.
Very well.
Yes.
Who are your stakeholders? When you talk about the stakeholders in water flow and freeing up the flow for salmon?
Sure. We've worked with the tribes and getting some feedback from them. Also, Department of Fish and Wildlife, working off of the databases that they have, and then vetting those out further with the tribes. There's been more, and I apologize. I can get back to you on the additional stakeholders, but we have had more as well.
I saw somebody from the county at a WRIA 13 meeting talking about trying to get grant money to remove some culverts in the county over a period of time. They were looking at feasibility. And some of the stakeholders there are people you mentioned, and there were others as well.
Yes, and we did just submit for a grant as well to try to capitalize on the REAP funding that we had allocated.
So in every single public service that we provide, we need facilities, and we also will need IT to operate. So that's what we call what is internal services. And Martin Casey is the director of the central services. They just manages just about every single facility that we have in the county, including this building, this aging building. Yes, Jennifer? and also we need to have all the IT support that we need to do in order to operate effectively as we have. So Martin, walk us through in the number of facilities that you're responsible for, and also how that ties into the aging infrastructure that we're currently facing, and how perhaps the continued maintenance may not lead us to an end result.
Sure. So the county currently owns and manages approximately 650,000 square feet of facilities scattered across several main campuses and some smaller locations. Here at the courthouse, which has 6 main buildings, nearly 200,000 square feet. Most of these buildings were built or acquired in the 1970s and 1980s. They've had no substantial renovation or major renewal work done on them in those 40 years, and they are rapidly reaching the point where they will either need to be renovated or replaced. Other county facilities are located at campuses, one south of the Olympia Airport, what we call the Tilley Road campus. That houses the Public Works Department, the Emergency Management Center, and the county's fleet operations in 5 main buildings and some ancillary support structures. We also have kind of what we call the Montman campus, loose group of buildings mostly associated with our law and justice functions. The county corrections facility, which is 100,000 square feet, the family and juvenile justice center, the county coroner, and those are all relatively newer facilities, 20 years or less. We have a public health building on Lilly Road, and we have a number of other smaller offices and facilities scattered around the county. That total portfolio has been estimated at a value of about $300 million. That's a significant investment that the county has made in infrastructure and in the community. Like most governments, the county struggles to be able to maintain a level of facilities maintenance and renewal in those facilities commensurate with that value. National standards would suggest that you might try to set aside as much as 2% of your facility portfolio value every year for major maintenance and renewal. You know, things to keep the roofs secure, keep the buildings secure, keep the lights and the electrical systems working, keep the HVAC systems working, boilers and plumbing and all of that essential infrastructure that keeps the buildings safe, secure, functioning, durable, and sustainable. If we were to attempt to fund maintenance and renewal at that level, we would be trying to set aside as much as $6 million a year for that. We've been more on the scale of being able to set aside about $2 million a year for that historically at the county. So understandably, you can see that we've not been able to achieve the level of maintenance and renewal that would be ideal. But very few governments are. That's just a fact of priorities of budgeting and so forth. So what we do try to do is do the best we can with the facilities and be creative about preventative maintenance as much as possible and major maintenance and renewal when possible. I do applaud the county. About a decade ago did make the decision to create a major maintenance building reserve fund. There's a little over $6 million in that now that is set aside for these major maintenance and infrastructure projects. But going forward, I think the real challenge for the county is coming up with a long-term plan to house county government in buildings that are safe, accessible, durable, secure, and functional for county needs, not just now but also into the long term. And I'm excited about some of the conversations that are underway to do just that, most notably around potentially replacing this courthouse, which I think is our most urgent need.
Thank you. And excuse me. And all of us can attest to the fact that we need to be prepared in case of an emergency. And also, on a daily basis, we see Medic One going up and down the streets, providing immediate emergency services to our citizens. So what you may not know is how Kurt Harding is managing the Medic One. And the Medic One system has a regional impact and a regional perspective. So the question for you, Kurt, is how Medic One really provide the services in coordination with all the first responders across the county?
Okay. So Medic One is set up as a tiered response system. So when somebody needs emergency medical assistance, they dial 911. That's one of the key pieces to it because that starts the system rolling. What we need is citizen involvement right up front. So our first tier, our first line of defense really is citizens, people out there, the public. The second piece is once we get the call into 911, the dispatcher looks at what we call criteria-based dispatch. What are the symptoms that are being described to them? That determines what the package is that's rolled out. Our backbone for Medic One are our EMTs, what we call basic life support or BLS. We always roll EMTs to every EMS call that comes in. The reason for that is we have about 55 EMT units or BLS units across the county, approximately 600 EMTs. They're the first on the scene. They do the triage. They do the patient assessment. They get the information. And then if it merits, we dispatch paramedics, what we call our advanced life support or ALS. And that's the big red Medic One units that you see out there. Those paramedics have advanced skills that they can bring in, and their advanced skills are capable of providing a lot of medication, a lot of treatment, a lot of diagnostic tools, so that when they get there, they can provide that capability for depending on what the situation is. But when we get down to it, I will tell you that what we need the public to do out there is take some education yourself. Invest in your family, in your community, a 1 to 2 hour CPR class. Because we found out that when there's a cardiac incident, if a citizen gets involved with CPR, that patient has doubles the chance of survival for that patient. And I will tell you also that we have one of the highest CPR save rates in the state, and also consequently the nation. We have 54% CPR save rate, but that's because the public gets involved. Medic One provides free CPR training, so if you go to our website and you can contact us and you can get enrolled into a CPR and AED class. And again, 74% of cardiac arrest happens in the home. So if you want to invest in your family, take a 1 to 2 hour CPR class, because it can provide benefits not only to you, to your family, but also to the community.
Thank you. Moving on to some of the questions we have received, and I believe this question is for Shelley. Utah had a great housing for homeless program a few years ago. They claim that in the ballpark, a third of the cost per person in relation to actually providing a permanent housing. How soon can we get started in a similar plan here in Thurston County?
Sure. So one of the things that we are responsible for is both homelessness and affordable housing. And one of the plans that we have coming soon to the commissioners is our homeless housing plan, which is a 5-year plan. It used to be a 10-year plan. The Washington State Department of Commerce, which provides a lot of our federal and state funding that passes through and comes down to the county, requires this plan. So the plan is driven by the citizens, by a specific advisory group, and that advisory group involves experts that are on the front lines in the community, as well as businesses, first responders, affordable housing providers, social service providers, and other professionals, as well as those that have experienced homelessness themselves, that come together and look at our best practices, look at all of the requirements that we have from the state and the federal government, and put together a plan. And it is a very excellent plan that has some really great strategies. Unfortunately, the funding that we have available to us is not enough to meet the growing needs. So we've experienced a tremendous growth in our population of homelessness at the same time that affordable housing is extremely limited in Thurston County. In rental housing, we have less than a 2% vacancy rate. So that poses some really serious challenges for us, and we have to work together with our community and with our other government partners and providers to work on finding a solution to that. So it's a real challenge, but we have a lot of amazing people that are working hard on it, and some good planning efforts happening that you'll soon be seeing.
Thank you. This next question, I believe I'm going to key it on Jennifer. And what are you currently doing right now to address property on Native American reservations? What has worked well in the past and what has been ineffective? Maybe you could elaborate on some of the coordinating efforts that we have with the Chehalis tribe when they try to develop in trust lands.
So there's quite a bit of development that's going on down in Grand Mound. And while The property itself, they go through a different permitting process. There are facilities, or actually services such as water, sewer, and transportation that we're coordinating with them on in terms of what are they developing, what are the impacts, how do we plan for the future of managing those impacts. And so we have an ongoing relationship and meetings with them to talk about that and to mitigate. They're doing mitigation for some of that, working to actually partner with building some infrastructure there in terms of roundabouts. We're putting in a second water tower in the Grand Mound area, and there'll be some probably future developments as well as they move forward with developing. Yes?
I was supposed to say poverty, not property.
Oh, poverty.
Oh.
Sorry about that.
Sorry. So we answered the property question. Now, maybe, go ahead.
Yeah, on that tribal lands and stuff, that they're converting all this different property into businesses to generate money, and then our counties and our fire departments all respond to all of that, and all our roads down there get deteriorated on all that stuff, and then they don't have to pay taxes on any of this stuff. How it affects our community with our resources that we got to put all our stuff to and pay for it, and then they don't, in return, have to have any, permit processing. They just run their stuff through, or I don't know exactly how all of they do it.
I was going to say, they do have a permitting process. It's not specifically through the county on some of that, but they do have a permitting process, and they have environmental laws that they need to follow as well.
But I see them doing all this other stuff down there, and I live down there by the casino. I live by the Great Wolf Lodge, and then I've read in the papers about they don't have to pay any of their taxes and generate anything toward their county, and then we provide them with all the assistance and everything, and it just doesn't seem like it balances out.
You are correct in terms of they do not pay taxes. And when they develop their property, they develop based on their own standards, not necessarily with the county. But the Chehalis tribe does contribute in terms for the services that we provide. And we have a couple of in-local agreements with the tribe that addresses your question. Maybe Robin can elaborate on that.
So the Chehalis tribe, under the state gaming compact, contributes 1% of their gaming profits to the county to use for community purposes. So they do pay into the county. We're currently in the process of negotiation with the tribe to assess whether or not additional fees would be in order.
1%, the fire department's going out there about 3 times a day out to the county with their medics and aid vans and fire trucks, and it just seems like the county should balance the percentage out a little bit better.
Absolutely. Going back to trying to answer the poverty question, since we answered the property question. As we were having this conversation in terms of trust land, they have a sovereign nation. They can really manage their land and their citizens as a separate federal nation. And that by itself, including social services they provide to their no very lucky citizens within the tribe. So I believe we try to coordinate some of those efforts with the tribe, but at the same time, they believe that it is a sovereign nation. They can probably take care of their own citizens as they see fit.
Okay.
One thing that I'll add to that, just from the public health and social services perspective, is one of the things that we take a look at when we look at our data and that I'm really concerned about is health inequity in our community, and that includes things like poverty. And so we look at disparities and how we can promote more equity amongst our community. And our tribal members in our community certainly are more impacted by certain things. And so we work together with them in multiple different ways. One of those ways is through our Thurston Thrives initiative, and we have an economic action team that looks at alleviating poverty amongst many areas of our community, not just with tribes, but throughout our community, and how we can work together to do that more and improve the health and well-being of our community. So I would encourage you to look into Thurston Thrives and specifically the economic action team as well to look at that, and you'll be hearing more about health equity coming up as well.
And I believe the last question you submitted is how soon can we implement a program to replace the thousands of miles of lead piping in the area and properly test water for contaminants? That is a very broad question, and we do not manage the water supply within the city of Olympia. We do not manage the water supply with the city of Lacey. We do have a couple of water supplies down in the Grand Mountain area, as well as the Great Boston Harbor. And I believe those pipes are fairly new that doesn't contain lead. Now, maybe Shelley can walk us through as to the testing that we go through when we test potable water, or is the state who does that?
A little bit of both, depends on where it's at. But we do have a drinking water lab that's located right here in this building. And so we regularly test drinking water for multiple contaminants. The Department of Health regulates lead levels for various types of institutions and water sources. One area in which we are really concerned with, and we recently had some grant support through Department of Health, is to look at lead in schools, because we really want to prevent lead and be able to support children in their learning and health and safety. So that is something that we regularly look at, but it really depends on where, as Romero referred to, where that water source is and whether we have jurisdiction over that. But there's a lot of people, both within the state and the local level, that work really hard to look for lead and to mitigate it whenever we do find it.
Thank you. I do have a question here where it says, when do I get a new... I'm sorry.
You raised an interesting question, and I've heard that a couple of times. Obviously, HR is Thurston County, that's all. But there's probably an interface in some of the departments here with Lacey and with Olympia and with whatever city entities there are. In some places that I'm aware of, the county does health inspections no matter where they are. Restaurants in Olympia would be a county function. How does that interface work with this county?
And that is a great question. Maybe Shelley can elaborate the role of the Board of Health.
Yes.
Because the role of is two different things. The Board of County Commissioners have legislative authority outside of the city limits, what we call the unincorporated areas of the county. But the Board of Health, which the three commissioners serves on the board, they have jurisdiction related to health issues on the entire county. And Shelley is the administrative officer of the Board of Health.
Yes, well, you said it pretty well, Ramiro. Yes, in public health, we have broad jurisdiction throughout Thurston County, and that is the case for every county in the state of Washington has a local health jurisdiction that is responsible, and the structure of our Board of Health is governed also by our county commissioners here. So we work very closely with all of our government partners, but yes, we have we do a lot of health activities throughout Thurston County to make sure that everyone is safe and healthy.
Would that also be true of waste management, noxious weeds, and that kind of thing, or is it its own thing in that regard?
In terms of waste management, we provide the services to the entire county. We just take all the refuse at the work, but in the Hawkesbury area. But all the recycling efforts are done in individual cities, in corporation, either by themselves or with another third party, which could be LeMay. But yeah, we absorb all the refuse on a single point, and then we manage that after that. Do you like to add anything, or?
No, that's accurate. Those facilities are dropping, or those agencies are taking their waste and recycle to our facilities, Waste and Recovery Center in Hawks Prairie.
Any additional questions? So I do have one question I'm going to try to answer, and this is, when do I get a new courthouse? And I know that it's a leading question. As you heard from Martin Casey, the county is in the process as to how we are going to replace this aging building, what we call the courthouse. And we have gone through the process for at least a year now. We have been looking at some options, because one of the requirements is the courthouse needs to be within the city of Olympia limits. That's the county seat. And that's by statute, we have to be within those boundaries. We have been meeting with the city of Olympia, and we have been working, for the last few months, we have hired a project manager to help us go through this process. Where we are right now is we have identified close to 12 sites across the city, and we have also gone through the process of developing our site selection criteria. We have also embarked on a financial analysis as to how we could, or you, the citizens, can pay for this venture. At this point, we're going through that process, working on a communications plan. And in fact, we have another meeting tomorrow with the city of Olympia, where we're going to start working as to how we can take those 12 sites to maybe 2 or 3 sites. Then we can probably do an actual feasibility study of those 3 sites and determine when, how, and where that particular facility will be implemented. One of the 12 sites is this current courthouse. They may be reconstructed or remodeled, because at this point we're looking at all the different options that we have in front of us. And again, we're in the planning stages, more to come. As soon as we finalize the communications plan, you start hearing more and more as to what this project is all about. Any questions on that?
Yeah, one of the things I've been hearing a lot about is flooding that's expected in the next 20 years, things like that. When you're looking at sites, are you looking at sustainability over long term with that kind of thing in mind?
Yes, and in fact, one of these point criteria is what we call is the 100-year flooding. So all that needs to be part. And there is some areas in downtown Olympia, they are considered as part of the 12 sites. Some of that needs to be part of the selection criteria. Yeah. Yeah.
So this HCP or the gopher study that they encountered, and how long has that been going on for the county, that we've been under this scrutiny of the zoning restrictions with the gopher impact? Do you know how long that's been on for the county?
Yeah, I think conservatively about 4 years, right? 4 or 5 years that this came to our attention. And we've been working through an interim process of review. So we go out to sites. Our commissioners here in Thurston County chose not to let the listing of the species stop construction and building. We instead worked with U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service to have what we call an interim review process. So it's a little more cumbersome, but we can go site by site and look at the different properties. The HCP would be a blanket kind of protection for all of our citizens, and we wouldn't have to do that interim process. So it is complicated, it is difficult. Working to get that HCP has been a cumbersome process. We've had multiple different kind of turnovers in terms of elected leadership, as well as the leadership in the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and myself as well, being a relatively new director. But in that process, we're working towards getting something that's good for all the citizens of Thurston County.
Right, because I see this thing continuing, because now they're going to do this. You're turning it over to the county commissioners. They have to review it. Then Fish and Wildlife has to review it. Then our government has to review it.
Yep.
Are we talking another 5 years of this continuing process?
I sure hope not. Yeah. And we're working really hard, diligently, the staff and the leadership at Thurston County, to not have that be the case. So, and I think one of the things, if I may just take a quick moment, acknowledging that part of my department in CPED and many of the others, engagement with the citizens is one of the most important pieces of the process. And that you all are here tonight, I think, says a lot, and I really appreciate your attendance. Our group in the community planning is engaged in what's called, the same group that does the HCP and the Shoreline Master Program and many other topics, is thinking about how we use our land into the future. And I'd encourage all of you to go to thurston2040.com to engage in the comprehensive planning process. You get more information on how we use our land and participate in this program. And you guys are active citizens, and just wanted to put that plug in real quick. Thanks.
Very well. I think we have time for a very short question for each one of you. And hopefully you can answer that question in 15 seconds or less. And the question is, please describe your relationship with the county commissioners.
So I have a daily relationship with the county commissioners, and I appreciate how much they take the time to learn about the needs of the county and the citizens. But I'd say my relationship with them is pretty good.
The chance also to frequently work with the commissioners almost on a daily basis, because not only under the Board of County Commissioners, but as the Board of Health. So they are very passionate about public health and social services, particularly around children and family wellness. They recently empowered me to create a new division focused on that. They're very concerned about prevention, the opioid crisis, and really caring for the people in our community, especially the kids. So very great and supportive relationship.
It's not so daily because they have picked all these great leaders to manage the work of the county. So I deal probably more with my partners here at the table than I do with the commissioners, but I certainly enjoy engaging them. For instance, next week is Public Service Recognition Week, so we'll be doing a variety of programs to recognize all the staff in Thurston County, but specifically those that are celebrating 5-year incremental anniversaries. And we have several that have 20, 25, 30, and even 35 years of service. So it's always great fun to take a little time out of the day, and the commissioners are great at helping recognize the great work of our workforce.
I agree, Katie. I actually had told one of the commissioners recently about my staff that have been here. I think I have a staff person who's worked here 26 years and one who's worked here 24 years, and they acknowledged that and then wanted to take time out of their day to acknowledge the staff people, so I appreciated that. But my relationship with the commissioners, to answer your question, Romero, is a good, healthy relationship. It revolves around open communication and direct communication, so I would describe it that way.
I would echo the comments of Katie and the others here that one of the hallmarks of the commissioner's relationship with us, and I think also with the county employees, has been their genuine interest, empathy, compassion, concern for the workforce and for the work that's being done, and to support that effectively. Personally, I would characterize the relationship as open, collaborative, frank at times when necessary, and willing to listen. So, thank you.
So I would first word that came to mind is transparent, and I was with one this afternoon, and that's one word I would use to describe, and also supportive for my department, public defense, and obviously 2 of our commissioners are ex-law enforcement. You may not think that, but it has been, and it's been encouraging.
Yeah, I would like to echo what everybody else has said. With emergency services, I would say the Board of County Commissioners is not only supportive, but they're very proactive, so that they are looking to find solutions to issues that are out there, and they're very receptive to feedback and recommendations.
Agreed. One of the things I value is direct communication, and they are direct, and I appreciate that. And I also appreciate that they, and it's been talked about here, that they really want to know what it is that we do, and they value the work that the Thurston County employees do, with that eye and focus on what do the citizens need, and they don't lose sight of that, and I appreciate that.
Okay, I'm going to set my timer. All right. Our county commissioners are action-oriented and customer service citizen engaged and looking for innovative solutions, which fits well with what we're trying to accomplish in CPED. That was 14 seconds.
Competitive.
Well, that unless you have any burning questions to ask, that concludes our program for you tonight. I really appreciate you taking the time to come in over and get to know this fantastic group of individuals that is going to take, I believe, the county to the next level in the future. Thank you.